Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I've been spending the week with the 2018 Toyota 4Runner TRD Offroad. And this is a vehicle I've tested a couple of times in different trim grades, and I've always really enjoyed it because, you know, this is the last of the Mohicans, a truck-based SUV in the mid-size segment, at least for now until the Ford Bronco arrives. Probably another couple of years, still that vehicle's some time off. But today we're out here in the desert and we're going to take this thing trail riding in addition to the other tests I normally do and really see what this thing's like to live with. On the topic of styling, before we get out for a test drive, one of the things I always like to point out, especially about this particular trim grade, the TRD Offroad, is it's the same thing as the old Trail model. They just changed the name last year to bring it in line with the marketing of the other TRD products, specifically the Toyota Tacoma pickup trucks. And so what this has here is a very unique front end. The front fascia is specific to this model. Now down here, this lower part is actually silver. Now we've got a whole silver vehicle here, but if this had been any other color, you'd see that stand out because it is its own piece and it is silver. This does have skid plates down below, but that's not what you're looking at here on the front fascia. That is just a decorative item. A very nice macho looking grille, looks like the jowls of a big bulldog or something. It's just rah. Anyway, headlights. This has projector beam headlights, nothing really super fancy, but they're definitely bold looking in their appearance. They do light up reasonably well at night, but in the latest IIHS tests, they do come in with a poor rating, but most all the trucks do, so it doesn't really stand out in a bad way there. There's fog lights down below in that lower fascia. As we come around the corner here, this also has unique 17-inch alloy wheels that are specific to the TRD Offroad and previously the Trail, same design wheel. What's missing here is a really more aggressive off-road tire. These tires aren't exactly what you're going to find on the TRD Pro, for instance. They're really more tailored for the street, and for most people that's actually going to work because that's where most people live with a vehicle like this. Coming down the side here and around to the back, you're going to really notice something. Nothing's changed. This thing looks just like it has since 2014. And for quite some time. If you sat behind these things at stoplights wondering what they're like or wishing you had one, well, there you go, you're looking at it again. One thing has changed here, and that's up here. There's an emblem now that says TRD Offroad. When it was a Trail, it didn't say anything there. That's the big change. We do have LED taillights back here, a nice chrome exhaust tip. This one also has the trailer hitch as an option. Up here in the hatch, power roll down window. That's been a staple in these things for quite some time. I remember going all the way back to high school seeing 4Runners when they first came out and the dog hanging out the back window with its tongue going. It's just a nice thing to have, a retro touch if you may. So what I like mostly though, even though this really hasn't changed, is the fact that it's still simple. It's the real deal. Nothing fake going on here. From behind the wheel of the 4Runner, this is a traditional SUV. You feel like you're in a truck, which means you've got a nice upright sitting position, a nice view of the hood. You're looking down on the hood. This thing's tall, and I love that in a vehicle. It's something you just don't see anymore. We have a few things that are a little bit different going on with the interior, the trims and the seats. And we'll start with these. They're actually quite comfortable. I've been sitting in them almost every day for a week, never got tired of it. This material here looks like leather, but it's not. It's what Toyota calls soft tex. It's a simulated leather. If there's one downfall at all is that you can tend to sweat in them on humid days because they're vinyl. It's what they are, but they're very comfortable. They're very good to look at. And here in this trim grade, they've got the red accent stitching and the red TRD logos there in the headrest. Very handsome. And that red stitching also flows along the door panel here, down here on the console lid. And a few other special touches with the TRD Offroad include a TRD shifter, and down here on the center console, a nice bezel that looks a lot like carbon fiber. Now, it's not the real deal, but it's the most convincing fake carbon fiber I think I've seen yet. The rest of the interior, it's just very truck-like. It's very old school. You got a very upright dash. This center stack is like a wall. You definitely feel like you're in something from another century, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's almost a retro touch here. I kind of like it. You've got big knobs here on this center stack, hardy knobs. And down here on the center console, you've got a good old-fashioned lever for your transfer case. None of these fancy buttons or knobs. The material quality in here is very good, I think, for the price tag. You do have a lot of hard plastics, but there are some soft touch materials in all the right places. The quality of the switchgear, very good. Here on the steering wheel, on the center stack, on the door panel, it's typical Toyota switchgear, but it just has a nice feel to it. That's one of the reasons Toyota has a good reputation out there. When it comes to storage, there's actually quite a bit here. Down here in the center stack, old school though it may be, there's a lot of little cubbies here. There's one down here that my phone fits in quite well. There's actually another cubby down here in the center console that you can put a phone in. I actually found this one to be more convenient. You've got a USB port, you've got auxiliary ports. Here in this particular section, a lot of storage down here, big deep bin, and again, you've got power ports down there inside. The cup holders, a little bit spread apart. You've got one up here and one there. It really does work around a shifter and this transfer case lever. Not exactly the norm, but it does work pretty well. The rear seat back here is actually quite refreshing after sitting in a lot of crossovers that have a much more car-like feel. As you'll notice, this has a very high seating position. That also means that the headroom sort of feels artificially light. It's actually got a cut-in area up here, so there's plenty of room, but because this does set down here for that sunroof in this particular vehicle, you do have sort of the claustrophobic feeling that it's not very tall. But the reality is there's plenty of space back here. I love the high seating position, and as you can see, there's also plenty of leg room. These seats halfway forward, halfway back. I've got about 3 inches here, so if a driver that was larger than me, I'm about 5'9", got in here 6'1", 6'2", they could push this seat back quite a bit here before they started impacting me back here. These seats I'm sitting on here do fold forward. It's more of a fold and tumble as that lower cushion does go forward, then the backs go down. It goes down in a sort of hybrid 40-20-40 split. It's really a 60-40 in the big picture, but you can put that center section down, and if you've got long things like skis or something like that, and still have 2 people sitting here. When that's down, you've got a load floor back there that's not perfectly flat, but it does work pretty well. And since I'm talking about that flat load floor, let me show you one of the reasons why it's so flat. This actually has the available slide out tray, and this adds about 3 inches of height to the floor. But look at this utility here. If you've got a lot of equipment, if you're out camping or hiking, or in my case working here with photography, you've got your equipment here. You don't have to reach all the way in or crawl up in there to get the stuff that's deep in there. I really think this is an awesome feature here, and there is a bit of a storage area down underneath that. Not very tall, but you can put flat items down there, and the thing just works very, very well. Very impressed with that. When it comes to rating this interior, I'm very pleased. I'm very impressed with the packaging, I'm impressed with the material quality, and I'm impressed with the overall storage that's going on here. So the interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. Under the hood here, we have an engine that's actually what we could call venerable, which is a big fancy word for it's been around for a damn long time. 4-liter V6, dual overhead cams, 270 horsepower. Here, it's mated to a 5-speed automatic transmission, and in this particular model, it has a traditional manual transfer case. So you've got 2, and then you've got 4 high and low. And here in this particular case, because this does only have 5 speeds, not 6 or 8 like some of the competitors out there, fuel economy not the best in the world. It's rated at 17 mpg city, 20 mpg highway, and 18 mpg combined. So the question always becomes, how does it go? Well, the one thing you're never going to forget about is the fact that you're in a very heavy vehicle here. Body on frame, big SUV. There's a reason all the other automakers out there went scurrying to crossovers like a bunch of scared rats. It's because, well, these things drive like trucks. They're heavy and they're slow, and it makes the engine work very hard. The great news here is the fact that this engine, even though it does work very hard, and it is sort of handicapped, I think, with this 5-speed transmission, not a 6 or an 8-speed like a lot of the competitors out there, it still manages to be very refined, and it's got a nice demeanor around town. It's quiet, it's smooth, and it behaves well. The one thing it doesn't do all that great, as you might imagine, is fuel economy. Now it is rated at 18 mpg combined. What I ended up with this week is 17. Not far off, but it certainly isn't the kind of stuff you might expect with a Nissan Pathfinder or a Ford Explorer, those vehicles now on their car-based station wagon architectures. But nonetheless, this is a powertrain that's proved itself reliable. It works very well off-road, and when you're just driving around town, it actually behaves quite nicely. So powertrain gets 4 out of 5 stars. Out here on the open trail, you find out very quickly that this is really what you spent this money for. This isn't some, for lack of a better way of putting it, this isn't some pansy-ass crossover that was designed and built for Americans. This is made in Japan. This is the same chassis that's exported around the world to other global markets, including them third world places where they ain't gotten them good roads. So it's made to last. It's made to feel good out here. It's made to be able to take what you give it. And rolling over some of these bumps, some rocks, going through the washes, I'm finding that this thing just takes it and it serves it up to you in a very refined way. This thing feels solid as a rock. The suspension tuning is nice and compliant. Therefore, this thing doesn't beat you to death, and it doesn't beat itself to death. It has a lot of suspension travel going in and out of these big bumps. Pretty rare I'm hitting the bumpers. It just has a nice high quality feel out here on the trail, such that you could do this literally all day long and it wouldn't tire you out, and it doesn't make the vehicle feel like a pile of junk because it's not rattling. You might notice that. I'm not getting any shuddering in the structure. It's just well put together. But that really isn't the test. The test is the desert washboard road. This, I get a little speed up here and really start putting some vibration into this chassis. This makes most crossover SUVs completely come apart at the seams. You get some speed on this thing and you get those bumps coming at it. It just deals. It just deals with it. And I've driven some very expensive off-road vehicles out here, a lot of trucks, a lot of crossovers. Doesn't matter the brand or the price point. This is the great leveler because this can make any vehicle feel like a complete pile. And this one doesn't. This handles very nicely out here. The washboard rhythm, all of that stuff, very much isolated from the cabin. No rattling in the suspension, no rattling in the steering. And this interior is almost vault quiet out here. That's amazing. That is nothing short of amazing. And while we're not really doing a lot of heavy duty off-road here, I do want to mention all of the stuff that this does have. First of all, we've got a 9-inch ground clearance, very good. And we have a lot of traction toys here. First of all, we've got the conventional transfer case here, 2 4 high, 4 low, but we've also got the rear locking differential here when you step up to the TRD off-road. Very important if you're going out into the deep mud, if you're rock crawling, if you're going straight up a mountain, that's a nice thing to have. Or if you're in moguls where you've got a lot of articulation and maybe one of those rear wheels is losing contact with the ground, that's what that's for. We also have the software controls up here on the upper console. The crawl control, that will set this at a specific speed and it will literally crawl you through sand, mud, rocks, anything, steep terrain at a set speed. And it uses the ABS, the traction control, and the stability control computer to really divvy up power to each individual wheel right where it needs to be and keep you on an even keel. Up or down hills, there's also the A-track system. Using the brake system, it can actually divvy up power to any one of those 4 wheels at any given time. And that's something that no matter how good a driver you are, you can't do on your own. Out here on the highway where most people actually spend their lives driving around town on the highway at speed, you still know, just like with the powertrain, that you're in a big heavy truck. This is tuned for off-road driving, which means it does tend to have some roll. It does have dive and pitch when you hit the brakes and when you accelerate, but it has a nice quiet ride. Even out here at highway speed, sunroof, it's pretty quiet and it feels of quality. Therefore, in the total picture, even though this is tuned and there is a compromise for its off-road prowess, I'm very happy with it. Chassis gets 5 out of 5 stars. When it comes to the infotainment system and the technology here, we don't have the latest, greatest whiz-bang that a lot of other competitors have gone to. And when I say competitors, I mean the crossovers out there. It is a touchscreen. It does have the Entune suite of apps. And of course, because we're in a sort of old school vehicle that this was put into, we do have hard controls for everything, which I love. Because it does have a smaller screen, some of the menus and buttons are a little more compact, but the graphics are very crisp. It's easy to see. When it comes to feature and functionality, it actually works pretty good. The menus are easy to follow. The presets for the audio are always right there, right up front. The nav map is actually pretty easy to see whether you're at daytime or night. And the audio quality here also, I would say it's middle of class. Toyotas, even their high-end JBL systems, haven't always had the best audio, but this just isn't that bad. And of course, we have satellite, we've got AM, FM, you've got Bluetooth connectivity, and there is a CD player right here. One thing we're missing, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. But overall, this is a system that's a lot better than many out there, even though it could have a few more features. So it gets 4 out of 5 stars. On the measure of quality, if you watch my videos, one thing you know is that I really pick vehicles apart for the littlest things, especially squeaks and rattles. Out here in the desert, as we saw and heard, nothing. This thing is solid as a rock, and that is frankly quite amazing. Now, this is manufactured in Japan. Paint finish, body panel fit and alignment, all very good. The materials inside and out, I think, are very much in class. Now, this isn't Lexus Audi territory when it comes to the interior plastics, but this is a truck. This is meant to wear long, wear tough. And I really think that they've done a good job here. It's certainly better inside when it comes to how that interior is put together than a lot of its American counterparts, even from Toyota. So very impressed overall. Even though the warranty coverage here isn't the longest in class, anecdotally, it's a Toyota, man. You're probably not going to need to worry about it too much. So quality, it's 5 out of 5 stars. When it comes to safety, this is a vehicle that really is genuinely showing its age when it comes to the latest round of safety testing that goes on. The IIHS has instituted the small overlap crash since this basic design was created well over a decade ago. So as you can see here, we have a marginal rating on that small overlap crash. Therefore, this is not a top safety pick plus or a top safety pick. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the Toyota 4Runner TRD Offroad. I gotta tell you folks, I love this thing. I really do like this vehicle a lot. So much, in fact, it goes on my I'd buy it list for 2017. Now, I gotta point out the fact that I've test driven this thing 2 or 3 times in the last 2 or 3 years. It didn't rise to this level before. Question becomes, what changed? Well, nothing. What has changed is me. I have driven everything else out there. I've driven the crossovers that pretend to be off-road vehicles. Fact of the matter is, this is the genuine article. This is a tool. This is a vehicle that feels like what you're paying the money for. It doesn't disappoint you. It doesn't make you think, God, I got to slow down. I can't go over that bump too fast. It feels solid, and it returns the favor. It returns the favor. So I love it for that reason. It doesn't have everything every other vehicle on the planet has, but what it has, most of those do not. $42,000 for this one. You can spend more on this. You can do the limited. You can go all the way up to the TRD Pro, get more off-road prowess. I think for this money, this is an excellent value here. 5 stars for value. Put that in with everything else we've already talked about. We're at 4.5 stars for the review. Very good. And I'd buy it list. I'm Sam Hamar for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. All right, my friends, if you enjoyed the test drive you just saw, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel because, well, it's how I make a living. That you can do by clicking on the big round logo right down there on the screen. You can also see our latest test drive by clicking on the big square right there. Either way, stay tuned.